hope that you're all doing well. Today is Sunday the 28th of June. It is currently 9:15. Paris is just now emerging from a historic heatwave and it was hellish and it was catastrophic. I mean, France literally became hotter or equivalent to the hottest areas of the world. France literally became hotter than sub-Saharan Africa, which is insane to think about and very worrying and terrifying. It caused a lot of climate anxiety for me, other than the usual anxiety, because I literally had 3 anxiety attacks due to the fact that I felt overwhelmed by my sensations. I felt like I was suffocating in my own bedroom, and so that caused me to have anxiety attacks, which then led to more discomfort because I was actually suffocating. It was not good. The heat is finally breaking today. I wasn't able to do much. My family and I tried to seek refuge in like air-conditioned areas. We went to the cinema, coffee shops, but it was still absolutely horrible. I tried to channel what I was feeling into my poetry, so I wrote a few bits and pieces. At least I tried to exteriorize. I don't have a clear plan for my writing this week, but I am planning on figuring that out. I want to be more productive because the heat makes me unproductive, which is very difficult for me to handle because I'm someone who's very productive usually. And so not doing anything causes me immense turmoil. So I need to set a clear plan for my writing this week. Today I'm going to go see the second part to a 2-part biopic on the General de Gaulle. We saw the first part last week and it was really good. I'm not usually one to go see French films because I find that the acting is often very theatrical. The recent French films that I've seen, like Just an Illusion came out recently, was brilliant. Like that was brilliant, and this was really good. So I'm excited for part 2. Tomorrow is my best friend's 20th birthday, which is hard to believe, but I'm very excited for her, and we are going to spend the day together. We are going to go to brunch at a really nice place, where we're going to do gifts, and so this afternoon once I get home I need to write a letter, which I've already written a draft of, wrap her gifts, and I've also planned a little interview which I'm hoping maybe we'll like revisit when she's turning 25 or 30, etc. I planned 10 questions. After that we are going in the afternoon to it's like a workshop where you can paint stuff. So we're gonna do porcelain painting, I think. I'm not much of a painter, but you know, I'm just gonna stick to my usual designs because I do like to do watercolour occasionally, very rarely. When I do, it's mostly like autumn themed things, so I think if I paint like a plate or something or a little mug, I'll just do like little autumn designs on it. So yeah, that I can manage. That's really lovely. I'm excited. This week I just need to clear up what I want to focus on in my writing. I still haven't published letter number 5 of the Hawthorne letters because I just feel like I need to take a last look at it. Maybe, I'm not sure. I feel like there's something kind of troubling me with it. So yeah, I need to take a look at that. This is the final product of my mug. I made some little pumpkins, mushrooms. There's a tiny pumpkin underneath and there are leaves on the inside, which I really love. I love the idea of that. simply cannot fathom the fact that it is already July. Time is flying by. I think it's about 12:30 now. So far this morning I've done quite a bit of editing. Then I finally published letter number 5 of the Hawthorne Letters. It had been sitting in my drafts for I think like over 2 weeks at this point. I don't know what happened. I thought I had finished it, and then I just could not bring myself to publish it for some reason. It felt like something was still wrong with it. It was nagging me. I just couldn't figure it out. So today I sat down, finally reread it, brought some final edits to it, and decided to publish it. That is available to read on my Substack. If you don't know what this is, I made a whole like introduction video talking about this project of mine. It's an epistolary absurd fiction project. So it's letters from a character named Matilda Hawthorne as she travels mostly around the UK, but this letter takes place in Florence and the next one will take place in Paris, and then she's going to return to the UK. And she travels with a companion, a long-haired ginger cat whose name is Mr. Bartholomew Buttons. They're quite wonderful to write and I've been really enjoying it. So this is letter number 5. I've also written sort of an introduction piece on my Substack called An Introduction to the Hawthorne Letters. So if you want to read something with a lot of description about the characters, you can definitely do that. I edited some poems that I had written recently, did a little bit of editing on that because especially 2 of them were quite rough because they were written in the spur of the moment. They were very raw. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I'd say most of my poetry is quite raw because that translates into a very visceral poetry, I think. Today has been feeling quite autumnal, which is a really nice relief from the heat. I also wrote a little bit in my journal. I've been very consistent with my journal as of late. I think it's because of the journal in and of itself. I change my journals quite often. I wrote a Substack note on that actually, but I never feel quite like I belong in my journals until I finally decided to grab one of the prettier journals in my collection, because I have a collection of notebooks, of unused notebooks, and every time I start a journal I pick the ugliest one because I'm afraid that I'm going to ruin it. But this time I thought this pattern leads me to not write in my journal, which is something that I need to do. So let's pick a beautiful journal in my collection so that I may be able to write more. And it worked. I grabbed this beautiful William Morris notebook. I have one that's like even more beautiful, but that will be when I'm really ready. It's also a William Morris notebook. It's from the V&A collection at Waterstones. My dad got it for me at Christmas and it is sublime. Cloth bound journal with one of my favourite William Morris tapestries on it, which is Strawberry Thief. So this is the first step. So I added the sticker on the back. It's like a tarot card and it says The Hermit, which is me. Right, and then I decorated it on the inside. And yeah, I've been writing very consistently, so that's been really nice. Very good for my soul. So I also wanted to show you my mug, which I painted. I baked it yesterday because you're meant to do that like the day after, and it's very imperfect, but I think it's cute. It's a little bit rustic. When I saw it again yesterday morning, I thought, oh, this is really rough and bad, but it has redeeming qualities. I've been really enjoying using it though. It's a really lovely shape too. I like it. It is 3 o'clock. I apologise for the noise outside. There is work going on right next to my house. It's very frustrating. I've just come back from my little afternoon walk. I've just made myself a lovely little oat milk latte, which is delicious. It was rather sad. On my way back home, I found a little bumblebee who had passed away. It must have passed away during the heat wave because thousands and thousands of bees and bumblebees and other insects died during the heat wave, which is another dire consequence of climate change. I found him a nice flower and I had a little tiny funeral. I buried him. I wanted to get back into my personal curriculum. I have had a personal curriculum for 2 years now. I think, well, basically the first 2 years of uni, and I just finished my second year. I've always been someone who has learned outside of school. I'm deeply, deeply passionate about learning. I'm deeply curious as well. I'm always in need of knowledge. I decided to create a personal curriculum so that would be more centralized instead of just being random research, which I still do. Like, I'm the kind of person to go down Wikipedia rabbit holes for 3 hours. That's one of my favorite activities, actually. I just love doing that. I love reading articles. I also really love video essays on YouTube, and I would love to do those, but I'm just really scared of like talking in front of a camera for that long, so I don't really know if I'll ever get around to doing that. This personal curriculum this year, so the academic year 2025 to 2026, so I've done 3 modules so far. I wish I had done more. This academic year was incredibly busy in terms of exams and homework. Anyway, my first module was super interesting and a topic that I really love. I had knowledge of before, but I really wanted to do a deep dive. That's kind of what I do with these modules. I have quite a bit of knowledge on the topic that I'm interested in, but I want to do a deep dive and learn in a structured manner. So the first one I did was the 19th century decadent literary movement, Oscar Wilde's life and work in other literary figures, which was really interesting. I love Oscar Wilde. And while I was studying this, I read Only Dull People Are Brilliant at Breakfast. And the second module, which admittedly was my favourite because it's literally just one of my favourite topics ever, it was a history of Gothic literature. So I did origins of Gothic literature, political and religious context, influences, the original Gothic novel, which I was actually reading while I was studying this. It is The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. I think it was published in 1764. The Gothic other, the supernatural and the uncanny, the sublime, the female Gothic. I just love the Gothic so much. It's such an inspiration for me for my poetry as well. The evolution of the Gothic genre, the late Victorian Gothic, and while I was studying that, I read The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, which I loved, and it is peak Victorian Gothic. Gothic poetry, contemporary forms of the Gothic with cinematic representations. So I looked at the 1922 Nosferatu, which is a film that I really love. I watched it years and years ago. One day it is my dream to disguise myself as Nosferatu in that film for Halloween. I also looked at more contemporary Gothic representations from the late 20th century and onwards, with films such as The Shining, Seven, which are 2 films that I absolutely adore. The Shining is my favourite horror film. And the one that I'm currently working on, and that I kind of abandoned for a little bit because I started it right before final season. This module in particular was kind of inspired by one of my history classes that I absolutely adored. It was Domestic Life in the Long 18th Century. This is inspired from that class, from a specific part of that class that I really was fascinated by. Death from Antiquity to 19th Century England. I've done the foundations of antiquity with Egypt, the industry of mortality, Greece, the importance of burial and memory, Rome, the ancestor cult, then the medieval art of dying, folk traditions, transition to Enlightenment, 16th to 18th century, the anatomy theatre and the gallows, the mummy trade and medicinal cannibalism, the rise of the professional undertaker, 19th century England, the Victorian zenith, the cult of mourning, and right now I'm going to do post-mortem photography. Good afternoon, it is almost 2 p.m. Yesterday was rather mundane. Well, most of my life is rather mundane, actually. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Incredibly uninteresting to document, so I didn't bother. And this morning I just did some more uninteresting things like washing my hair and vacuuming. Today I'm going to do a bit more editing, but most importantly I am going to try to submit to a couple of places, which surprisingly takes quite a bit of time actually. Yesterday I basically compiled literary magazines or contests even that I may be able to submit to. Also, why it takes a bit of time is that I like to actually look at the magazine before I submit there, obviously, because I want to be able to see if my writing could potentially be a fit for what they provide. I'm going to end the video here. This week was much more focused on my poetry rather than any other project like the Hawthorne Letters. I feel like I've reached a little bit of a rut when it comes to the Hawthorne Letters. I feel like I have less inspiration, which is very frustrating because I love this project, I love writing the letters, and I know that once I sit down and start writing the letters, ideas just become very clear to me and I have a lot of sensory details in mind. It's a little bit harder at the moment because I feel like I have no inspiration for it, so it's hard to actually sit down and start writing. I'm constantly throwing around details, ideas, so that once I've gathered enough information, I can actually go ahead and start writing. I do have a commonplace book dedicated to the Hawthorne Letters, so I've just been writing down ideas in there. It'll come back to me. I love this project, so I'm not going to stop writing the letters. I just need a little bit of time to gather inspiration. But yeah, this week was more focused on my poetry, which has been quite good actually, because a couple of weeks back I dealt with a pretty serious writer's block regarding my poetry, and that was really hard for me because my poetry is my air. It's deeply, deeply important to me. I wouldn't be me if I didn't write poetry. I've been quite prolific recently. I even wrote a poem today. I ventured into something quite new. I've not really stepped out of my comfort zone when it comes to my poetry. I've stepped out of my comfort zone recently because I started the Hawthorne Letters, which is something I've never tried before, absurd epistolary fiction. Even in fiction, I haven't really written fiction before. I did as a kid, but it was nothing really actually developed. I wanted to attempt something slightly experimental, so that's what I did. And it was sort of prompted by the fact that when I was scouring all the lit mags that I submitted to, because I did submit to 14 lit mags in the span of 3 days, which is maybe a bit insane, which I'll come back to. But I have noticed that they showcase a lot of experimental poetry, and I find it really interesting. And so that, combined with the poem's actual subject matter, which I had in mind, it just felt like the right poem to test that experiment out, so that's what I did. It's interesting, I think. I don't know if I'll ever publish it because it's very new and I'm not comfortable with it at all, but it felt slightly liberating because I'm someone who's very tidy and strict and I hate chaos, and this felt like I was sort of embracing a quiet chaos that I very often explore within my poetry, which is why it's sort of a dichotomy that I have, because my poetry is somewhat very tidy, organised and strict, while at the same time I venture into these very chaotic feelings, emotions and states. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I just wrote it today, a few hours ago, so we'll see. Returning to why I'm submitting to so many lit mags, it is not just out of vanity. I don't just want to be published for the sake of being published. There are reasons for it. Well, I must admit, some part of me wants the validation of potentially getting published because I'm someone who despises most of what I write. So when I got published for the first time in the Victory magazine this year, I felt an immense sense of validation, which was very euphoric. But some part of me does want the validation and the visibility that comes with being published. But also, it's tied to something that I've always lived with, is that I'm extremely shy when it comes to showing my work. It's in that same vein of trying to venture out, trying to put my work out there, trying to step out of my comfort zone. And finally, getting published looks good on an application to a creative writing master's degree, which is something that I'm pursuing for my master's degree. So there is that too. I think I'm going to end the video here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!